So, really excited to chat through this white paper with you and get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain as to your thought process. And even as we chatted about before, I've read many a white paper, maybe more than I wish I did. And every single time I've read a white paper, I wished it was a video or a conversation or a podcast or a clip, whatever it is. It's like, can somebody read this? How do I get this on Audible or something like that, right? So, figure I'll give us a chance to talk through it and kind of create that companion piece to this wonderful white paper that you've created.
That sounds good to me. I'm happy to talk
Awesome.
about it. That's more fun for me too.
Let's jam through it. I've got the screen share going on, which maybe I should have given to you, but you talk me through it and I'll keep us moving. I'm going to start from the top. And again, however you'd like to go through, I'm following your lead, my friend.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll make it up as I go then.
Excellent.
So the real thing, the white paper is that well, my inspiration was much more from understanding it in the crypto world. So I've seen
Hmm.
theses that just go way too long or whatever, but like the idea of taking what is a complex concept like Bitcoin and breaking it down in a way that is simple, straightforward, has a good amount of context, but not overly contextual. Um, it's a powerful thing to be able to do for people who actually want to be able to get into something deeper and understand things better. And so I wrote it for that reason, and to understand not just what the world looks like today, also give context and let people know that we understand their pain, we feel their pain, we've gone through all this stuff before, and why we know that it's that much more necessary to create the thing that we did in the way that we did it. So, I mean, realistically, the importance of underwriting due diligence is that it's everything. If you have wrong numbers, if you don't have an established view of the world, and you don't have if two people are talking about someone says a cars, one person's talking about a Ferrari, the other person's talking about a Corolla, but and in one person's mind they have a Ferrari in their mind, the other person's mind has a Corolla in their mind. They're going to be very different outcomes. You could think about doing very different things with them. You'll think about them in very different ways. That's hugely important because you need to have the same. You need to be able to speak the same language and understand both, whether it's a Ferrari or Corolla or if it's a Jeep. You need to understand what it is. And much like I'll use the car metaphor a little further, underwriting and due diligence is allowed to, there's a thing to say, okay, we have a Jeep here. We agree on that? Cool. Now, what exactly is this Jeep? What are the parts? What are the individual components? How does the engine work? How do the wheels work? How do the spokes work? How do whatever? And all those things accounted for. If they are, then you can say, great, we're building from this base. This Jeep will have extra things put on top of it, or we'll give it a faster engine, but we now know what the world is. If for whatever reason you're buying a Jeep, you can ready to go run a race, and you only have three wheels, you're not going to do that well in the race. You're not going to be able to go up a trail very well if you only have three wheels. What underwriting and due diligence is essentially that. It's making sure that all the parts are accounted for and that everyone has the same role. So, what do we call the difference? Underwriting and due diligence are oftentimes conflated and used the same thing. The way that we're actually dividing them up between two different things. So underwriting is typically do more with financials, and whether it's for us, we mean financials that are in place financials, so things that are currently happening at the property. Due diligence is all the checking you need to do to make sure that the financials, the physical aspects of the property, um, the sponsorship, all the things that are like what makes up the property currently are all real, that they all exist, and that they're all part of that shared understanding of what the world is. If you miss something, particularly if you're trying to make a return for an investment, if you missed a big expense, if you realize that the roof that you didn't realize the roof need to be repaired and it's going to cost you an extra $500,000, and you didn't have that as part of your calculations, that will make your returns much worse. And
Mhm.
worse, if you don't have extra money laying around to pay for the roof, then it's a much worse thing because now the roof might cave in and make your entire investment not as good. So our idea for due diligence is making sure that every single thing is what they say it is, and that if we don't have that, if something is missing, that we agree on the thing that's missing, because that's going to need to go into the calculations to make sure that the thing actually has a good return. So we do a little bit, we focus on that. And generally the way in real estate that underwriting due diligence works is you kind of get some basic rules of thumb because there are so many variables, hundreds or even thousands of variables that you need to take into consideration. It's too complex for the human mind to be able to do at one time. So you get some rules of thumb. Generally, this is what your costs are. This is what your operating OPEX is. Operating expenses are. This is what your capital expenditures are. you get some basic rules of thumb and say, okay, I think this would generally work as a first pass at underwriting, and then you get more detailed and to see what's needed. And then, of course, you also need to have a bunch of additional, what I would call third parties, come and help you determine and say for sure what the value of something is or what something is about. What that means from a factual standpoint is you have hundreds, if not thousands, of data points coming in about all the things that a property currently is from various reports and various places that you need to be able to synthesize together. Remember, write into some kind of memorandum, know to be for sure before you even start with anything else. That's a lot of work. And there's a lot of chance, and a lot of work just to set up before you can even do any kind of projections and analysis as to what could happen in the future. Just know what's happening right now takes a lot, and there's a lot of different ways for that to go wrong. So why not find a way to? But most of that stuff is actually very mechanical. So why not just be able to go through that ourselves and knock all that out for you? So now you can spend more time actually looking at the fun stuff, like how can you make value in the future, not spend all your time setting up what exists right now. So our job, starting from that baseline, is you can't just have one. We can, and thus far there's only been one tool that fulfills one thing at a time. So I can do my projections easier, or I can do my, or maybe one thing will say I'll look at your rent roll, or I'll look at your financials and do it very very briefly. And like that one thing is your entire thing you do. So you speed up one part of your workflow, but everything else is still slow. And of course, you still have the same problems of like if the data's right in one place but wrong in another place, you're still the same place. And for us, we couldn't do that. So we're like, we're owners. We're going to, the KOPA market is going to be a very large owner. We need to have all this stuff ready to go. And we have the stuff ready, and it needs to be a one-stop shop. We can't just be relying on a bunch of other stuff. And so, for our standpoint, a one-stop shop where all the data is consistent, because we have to show that data to our investors as well, where there is one source of truth, where everything is accounted for, we can continue to build and do more. That's the reason for why we need to have KOPA Hub, and why we started with our underwriting and due diligence product.
Fair enough. Very interesting. So that kind of covers the introduction to that world of underwriting and due diligence. Can you tell me more about the pressure of time and precision?
So generally, if you're doing it as a professional, you typically have anywhere between 3 and 10 deals you're working on at various stages that need various levels of work. And then you also have that, and you need to remember what all those different things that are happening at the same time across the various third parties that you're working with, across the properties themselves, across the reports, across what you're seeing from the places, and then you expand that by every new property, and things compound, and you start to forget things because every human has a finite amount of memory in their RAM, as it were. The issue too is that in finance, you got to get stuff done right away. It's always like it needs to be right now, right now, right now. And that leads to, well, there's so much that has to be done. It all needs to be done correctly. And you can't make any errors. You also need to think about all the different ways that you can make errors to try to address them. And you have too many things to do. So the thing that typically gives between getting more stuff done and anything else is time. And you just add more time. So what does that mean is that you're up at midnight, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, trying to get stuff done. That's great in theory, maybe once a week. That's not great, but that's understandable. But when your average is midnight, well, eventually, at some point, if you're a morning person, you still need to be in the office in the morning, so you're tired at night. If you're a night person, you might be tired in the morning. But at some time during the day, you will have a lower output. You just spend more hours you spend more hours in the office, and eventually, as all this stuff starts to combine, you make small errors and you forget something, or you're completely focused, but you put in a 6 versus a 7, and that changes your entire underwriting, depending on which place it's at. So now you have to go back and double check and triple check and make sure those things are all right, because you can't give anything to your boss that's wrong. Or you definitely don't let it get to a client or to investment committee and be wrong. That's career suicide. So now you're up, you're stressed, you're trying to do as many deals as possible. The better you do, the more deals you get. And you're doing all this just to set the information up correctly so that you can then start making some decisions on it. And most of the stuff that you wanted to get into real estate for in the first place was to make the change and provide value, not the other stuff. And so what we're doing is we're saying, focus on the other stuff. Focus on the stuff that actually makes value. We'll make sure that we all have the similar view of the world. And if there is any issue where there's a discrepancy, that will be addressed, and there'll be another singular view, unified view of the world. So, uh, from a time perspective, you're crazy up, tired. Uh, over months, it's bad. You don't see your friends as much, but over years, you get beat down,
Mhm.
and then there's that leads to all kind of other issues that you can find in the real estate or in finance in general industries where people have coping mechanisms that are less than healthy. But you don't see your family as much. You don't see your friends as much because you're just up working. And of course, whenever there's an issue or a question from a boss or from somebody, hey, where's this at? Where's that at? Something that you were given, a few days ago or a few weeks ago, that wasn't a priority becomes a priority overnight because they happen to be at dinner with somebody. That means you have to wake up and start doing stuff again. All that stuff, all that means is that you're just spending time stressed thinking about where am I at in these different things. If there were a system that would allow you to be able to show that right away, or even not even need to do that, not even need to have them send you an email, they could log right in and be able to see it and all the work that's been done, and it's doing all the work for you. That makes a lot of sense. The other chance of you, the other thing of like you not needing to double check and triple check and quadruple check your work for every new change that's been put in, that goes across all things, is now also will be a thing that you're going to save time doing, so you can go home, or you can go out, or you can go do things and be a person and still have an even better fidelity than what you would have had before, and be faster, and get more deals, and get a bigger bonus, and be able to do your own deals if you want to. All of the above.
Interesting, right? You've laid out the kind of the three issues here in the white paper, and as you describe it, it shows how we can kind of solve all three of those, right? If we
Mm-hmm.
can speed it up, that increasing the speed and efficiency, but increasing the speed, you're no longer staying up, right? Because it doesn't take as much time to get these things done, which
Mm-hmm.
also can then reduce the small errors, right? Which can be very, very costly. And then being able to integrate that into one system, I'm thinking like it's the small errors are costly, but also really hard to find because they're
Mm-hmm.
spread out across so many different places, right? It's like truly cumbersome and difficult to locate
Mm-hmm.
the errors when you make them. So one issue is making the errors, why you're making the errors, then the errors you make, and then the actual process of finding and correcting them is very difficult. But creating an integrated system that's faster, again, connected, so we have just higher fidelity of information, right? Like the chance of you making a mistake, taking a 6 from this page and putting a 7 here is eliminated. And it's also easier to find incongruency. If there is human error, it's so much easier to find it because it's
Mm-hmm.
in one place. Okay.
And don't let you have a team that you're working with and that different
Oh,
people are doing
goodness.
different parts, because
Right.
at that point, whenever there's a mistake, it becomes a blame game, not about how can I get the deal done, but like I got to cover my own butt to make sure that I don't get fired. So I got to blame it on somebody else. Or sometimes work is just not done at all, and people will then go and say, "Oh, that wasn't my bad. That was somebody else's thing." There's there's no more need to have to hide behind not doing getting stuff done. Now you can be the person that says, "I got it done and I can prove it. Here's this here's a task that I did to make that happen."
That's the very practical elements of working, right? It's like beyond the systems or what we're supposed to do or what systems we use. It's like very interpersonal issues. Is like, oh, you just didn't do it, or if you didn't do it, how are you trying to pass off in a way that it sounds like you did, or it wasn't your fault. We've all been there many times.
And you spend so much time, if for folks that are actually doing the work, you spend more time trying to cover anything that could be bad that's said about you, and not focusing on like the actual work. Now you're making sure that
Right.
you're spending more time being afraid of something. That's not only just inefficient. It's also it needs to be relegated to the past. I
Mhm.
think the idea, I may have worked in politics a long time ago, but inner office politics is not for to anyone's benefit except for a few, and that time needs to go. It's like let who can get the work done, who can do a great job, who can be more thorough, and you want to let people like that be able to rise to the top because those kind of people that are going to be able to provide more value over the long term and provide a better outcome for the investors and returns that are needed to make the real estate drive or to drive real estate.
I feel like I've seen that so many times in so many different industries where really what you're trying to do is not get in trouble. right?
Yeah.
You're like, what am I going to get called on? I mean, it's like going back to the fourth grade or whatever. It's like, what homework is the teacher going to check? And are they going to check it in front of the class? Like, how do I not get in trouble and not get embarrassed? Versus trying to really understand the homework or really understand the assignment or do the very best job you're trying to fit into the system that's given to you, right? And this, I think, enables us to hopefully break out of that and not just try to cover your butt or not get caught, but again, to actually do what we call the fun stuff, right? Because you care, because you're interested, and to get back to the reason. I mean, sometimes we forget that we all choose our careers. So we don't, we get to be here. We chose to be here. There's hopefully something you like about this or enjoy and really keep you in that decision making seat. Absolutely.
It's funny because as I think about even an MBA, you know the professors that will call you out and make you answer the case. So some people don't mind that. Other people are afraid of it because like, oh, I don't want to be called out for this. That would suck. So it's like this, it's a natural thing. But to your point, most people that get involved within the built environment want to improve it for some reason. It's not just money. And that's kind of beaten out of you over the hours of being up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, tired, getting no credit, and having somebody else take all the credit for what you've done. It like no longer becomes about the actual work why you started. Now it's about something else entirely different. And so that also needs to change because there's a lot of people who are very talented that have been driven away from the real estate industry and lots of other industries because it's much more about politics and actually getting the work done, and that also needs to change.
Man, that's part of the working with big companies of any industry. The bigger the company, the more time you spend trying to operate within that company, right? Doing the what are our truly their traditions. They're not even operating systems. Or what are our traditions? What are the ways we do things versus doing it the smartest way or the most efficient? We were just chatting about Slack a few minutes ago and about the evolution of the different inter-office communication systems. How much time have we spent trying to learn the specific office communication system
Mhm.
even or how we communicate these things? Yeah, very well said. And I think this empowers it's similar because I'm seeing as a career marketer, I'm seeing a lot of these changes happen in my field as well, right? With the rise of AI and better technology, where I can skip what used to be so many just interpersonal process of shipping this to this team so they can do this and they can do that. I can do it all at one time and stick to the important pieces, right? To really pushing ideas forward and developing new initiatives for us versus just trying to send this to this team and this team and this team so I can just communicate the message to the stakeholders.
Yep,
Right.
100%. I'm looking forward to the day that's coming, very soon next month, where we help bring that in, and we then let the people who have been toiling in the back and not getting the credit for the work they've been doing to get that because they're doing the things and it's going to be quantifiable. There's no, I'm a basketball player and we say ball don't lie. Same thing. Here's my work I've done. I can show you the different tasks. And there's no questions about, I can, when it comes to bonus time, this is what I put in. And here's the now also I can focus on what differentiation can we bring that's beyond I could someone that may have raised a lot of money that can go do the exact same strategy that everybody else does. You kind of have to because to be at scale to move the needle on such things on large funds, you need to have a set priority and you need to work with assets of a certain size. But now, if underwriting costs become de minimis, you can do a lot more and do a lot more interesting things. And now you can free up. It's now the compute time is now and the calculation time is now drastically reduced. So you can actually test different theses. Does this make sense for me? Does that make sense for us? Does this make sense for us? What are good additional ancillary things that we can add on to our strategy now because we're no longer inhibited by the amount of time it takes to underwrite or the amount of time it takes to get through processes or do office politics. Like let's actually focus on how do we grow the pie for everyone within the company.
Right. It's that the cost of decision making really dictates how many decisions you're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like what is it going to cost again in time, in media? I used to work in the record industry. Justin, can we get the chairman to sit down? Is he in town? Is he in the country? When can we get the chairman to sit down? We get one meeting per month. That's going to dictate as somebody who's pitching artists, which artists I'm going to pitch, how many.
Yep.
I might have five that I think are great, but if I'm seeing you once this month, I got to pick one.
Yep.
And maybe the best one was going to be, number three in that list. Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense.
Or
And again, is
if I have $100 million fund and I need to go be able to buy 10 properties, I only have time, and I'm going to need to pick from 100 properties to get to that because I need to be able to deploy that much money in a way
Hmm.
that makes sense. That means I can only look at properties that are between $5 and $10 million, or maybe even 10. If it's 10 per, and you get like 50% of it in debt, then I need to look at $20 million properties. There's not very many $20 million properties vis-a-vis compared to the rest of the world. Most of them are much smaller, but you can't do them profitably until now. And so now, what things actually make you can have a thesis about how the world is going to operate, but if it's too small of a underwrite to do because or too small of a deal to do that won't move the needle in your fund because of the amount of time it would take. If it takes the same amount of time to underwrite a smaller or bigger thing, it's more about the value of what the thing is. If you don't have to spend that time competing anymore, you could actually amass a lot of smaller deals and put them together and still have the same outcome. And you could do so in a way that's much more sustainable and a place where other people haven't been able to play yet.
Now starting to really reshape an industry. We're kind of at that section here, and I don't know if you've really covered it all the way there. We're referencing some of this innovation in real estate technology, but there's a section here on the rise of tech that kind of a little bit about where real estate tech has been, and then a bit about the rise of tech in real estate. So you want to speak on that for a moment?
Yeah, real estate's slow when it comes to adopting technology. It's probably, if not the slowest, it's definitely one of the slowest. And the reason why is real estate makes money based on where it's located, what it's zoned to do, and who's willing to pay for it. So why need to adopt a lot? It's a different thing if you're in a company and you need to be able to, you need to do your highest and best competitive because everybody else could copy what you do. But in real estate, once you have a mall in a certain place and there's no other malls nearby, it's kind of it. So you can make some improvements to how the mall looks and how it functions and everything else, but you don't need to. Technology isn't going to be the big driver, at least not in the physical space. And there's a lot of prop techs out there that are trying prop tech companies that are making incremental changes, and those are great. But the real thing is, do you have the money to buy the mall, or that apartment, or something else? The changes that have been made with regards to technology were adopted very slowly, and then they've stuck. So the advent of Excel made calculating easier. So you're no longer calculating by hand anymore. You're calculating by a computer program. That was the big deal at one point, and so that's that now become the industry standard. And then when it
Mhm.
came time to underwrite commercial properties, which are much more complex and have much more issues within it, then there's things like Argus. And Argus was made essentially as like a computer coding thing, for lack of a better term, very not user friendly, but it because they would do complex calculations. So they was like, well, this or trying to build it yourself in Excel, and you almost certainly will get it wrong in Excel because it's so complicated. So Argus built it once right, and so people use that, and it's become a standard. No one likes using it.
As I've heard.
Nobody likes using it, and it's one of the things that leads to those 1 and 2, 3 a.m. Nights because one small mistake in that, and it's exposed to you as a problem throughout. So and you can't find where that one mistake was, but it's going to calculate out all the way through. So that's all problematic. When it comes to communication, I mean, real estate's been around for a long time, so you used to have to do things by mail, and before that, you would have to do things well, there was mail and there's the Pony Express and there was telegrams, but these are all things that had to be extremely secure. The unifying factor with whatever it is that was being communicated need to be extremely secure. It need to be something that could not be gamed because these are such large assets, these are people's livelihoods, and that's a really big deal. So what does that mean from a usage perspective? Is that there hasn't been a lot of new growth in the area because again, it's like, well, is it going to be? Is it? I can use from faxes to emails to VDRs or virtual data rooms. Those are all great, but they kind of that's what they focus on. They focus on security of information and being able to send to certain people and not have that come out. Their entire company is built just around that, and that's great. But again, that's a one part of the tech stack that needs to be managed completely separately from everything else. So essentially, what you're doing
Mhm.
is you're taking the Excels and Arguses and the Red IQs of the world and putting them together and adding them in with communications. And then you also need to make sure that you can extract the data and not make any mistakes. So as you go across these various things, there's going to be a problem. And then for emerging stuff, there's new tech that has been out, or newer in the last 10 years, that try to change some of this stuff and make it more easy and understandable. So things like Red IQ and Archer and Arc and DealPath to a certain extent are all there to make things easier to use and more understandable. And they very much like real estate focus on a certain area. So debt, uh, debt for some, or multifamily for others, or focus on a certain task like DealPath focuses on pipeline. That's all great. And those are all things that are designed to be able to help so that DealPath is more focused on if you're at a large team, everyone can see what a deal is in a pipeline. Other things is like I can make you underwrite a little faster. The difference is, again, you have the same silo of stuff, so you have to put things from one place into another, into another. And if you make a mistake, DealPath will show the wrong mistake to everyone. But it's
Hmm.
not it's not a one stop shop. So you have to make sure that you're going back through. And again, for every new thing you have to add, it's more complexity, more chance of things to break
Right.
down.
Right. Every step is more chance for human error.
Yep. Every new
Absolutely.
every new program is infinite, more chance for human error. For every one program is another chance for human error. But square them and cube them out. When you start having there's just the number of
Hmm.
things, and then if every new team member, every new technology means that you can cube out the number of errors that are done, and then the bad responses those have. And the thing too that I forgot to mention, you change your assumptions over time. So you might change it in one model, but if you haven't changed across everything else, so you can get everything right, and then someone says, "Okay, change this." That'll change the numbers all across the rest of the
Right.
property, and you might catch them all the first time, and the second time, the third time, but there could be dozens of changes of iterations of tweaking little things and little assumptions, and that becomes big.
And it's interesting because these are offering opportunities to speed up, do things faster, right, more efficient. But if and when they're not connected systems, being able to move faster also opens up more chance for error, right? Because like if you're flying through and it's like, oh, I can do more now, I can do more deals quicker. Well, now there's more chances for you to make errors there when it's not connected because you still have to transfer the data from one platform to another. So it's one thing to speed it up, but really the second key its partner mechanism is having a connected system that speaks to where these processes can speak to each other and share the same data, not pass data from here to here, but literally share the same data set.
Yep.
Right? You change a number here and it changes everywhere else. Absolutely.
One source of truth for everything.
Very important. Okay. Now I think we're ready to start to dive into some more COPA stuff. Cool. Welcome back to part two of our white paper talk through. Looking a little bit different today, but just a little bit. Um, I think we were just about to dive into COPA market itself, right? We really spent some good time going through the nature of the market, not COPA market, but the broader market, the nature of underwriting due diligence, what the problems are, why speed, efficiency, accuracy, security, transparency, why these things matter so much. And then we just got to the stage in the white paper titled COPA Market, Driving Innovation in Underwriting and Due Diligence for Institutional Owners. Tell me more about this, and then let's patch this back in.
So the original idea for Copa Market was how do you get as many people out of poverty as quickly as possible, um, and how do you do so in a way that's standardized? And so on my side, I was thinking, well, yes, we can find the types of assets that are cash flowing and make sense and everything else that are safe. But then on top of that, once you find those assets, you have to be able to underwrite them and do the due diligence to make sure those properties are what they say they are. The owners are who they say they are, and they're not under any kind of investigation. Um, and to make sure that the records are very clear. And so for that, you need to have a lot of data. So if you think of like the stock market, even though the accounting standards have changed, generally most of the things to book revenue, to book expenses, are done by large accounting firms. And while that's good, and that's how you're supposed to be confident that those numbers are correct. We don't need to have a large accounting firm check ourselves. We can actually find the information directly from the property itself. Because within a business, you can have Coca-Cola might have money from its operating from its syrup. It might have money from its trucks. It might have money from other places. That's very difficult to keep track of. But for us, the real estate itself is very easy to say. This is where rents come from. This is where the revenue comes from. This is where expenses go. And so if we were to able to provide that same level of clarity and decency and knowledge that goes to institutions, like the places that I've worked at and have been on the board for, then why not be able to give that to everybody? Let them all be able to make that same decision for themselves. And so we had to make it easier and faster and whatnot to be able to do it. But at the very base of it, we had to have the data, and we had to have it in a way that was important and fundamental to understanding how the property actually worked. So understanding all that, we then had to say, okay, well, we need to have an end-to-end solution, because we thought about, okay, what if we use some third parties here? What happens if we use this technology and that technology and this technology? And we went back to the same problem. If we did all these things, and anytime there was human error, which there would be, if we're going to have hundreds and thousands and millions of properties on this global market eventually, it would fall apart. And we can't make mistakes. People actually need to have their stuff. So how do we automate that? But then on top of that, we say, well, we have to be able to do that on a consistent basis, that we have to have many deals coming through the thing. And so we wanted to let there be some human touch and have some ability to like make the final decision, but we can't spend hundreds of hours on underwriting just to set the information to see if it makes sense. We should be able to do that right away. And so we looked through all the things out in the market. We tried to see what existed and to see what we could use and leverage. And nothing fit realistically. And so we say, well, either we have to just kind of piece it together and hope it works, or we could build it ourselves from the ground up. We knew it was going to be hard and complex and everything else, but at the end of the day, it was necessary. So we had a bunch of different specifications that we need to do to make KOPA Market. And in hindsight, looking back, they're the same things that any large institutional investor who wants to do a good job with for their clients and for their investors would need. So we added even more, because we had to do it for not just a few large pension funds, but for millions of people to have access to data around the world.
Makes sense. There was a clear need there. You think it's a good idea to talk through these individual pieces here?
We can do it.
Let's get to the next section.
I can jump to it really brief, because the thing is, like, when doing this, it's important to know why and the how we did the why and what that means from an impact standpoint. So for factual accuracy, we couldn't have bad data, and we also couldn't assume that data was right, because if you make assumes make an ass out of you and me, we couldn't have that as a possibility. So we had to make sure that if there was anything, it was either whatever you saw is definitely factual, otherwise it's flagged. Human touch just means at the end of the day, someone needs to be working on this. It's not something that you can just say someone else can do it, or AI can do it, because you're never going to trust the machine. Someone with some kind of skin in the game needs to be on it. Obviously, we had to be so much faster and so much more efficient to make sure that we're making the right decisions quickly. We had to be able to work with every single property type. So not just the major food groups, the apartments and industrial and office and retail, that stuff, and hotels. We had to get much deeper, because without it, we focus on cash flow, and because we focus on cash flow, it can come from anywhere. We had to be able to support everything. Full cycle just means that we go end to end. We don't have to rely on others. We have to be able to be flexible so we can scale. So if we have a new idea that we want to be able to add to, we can. One stop just means that it's that simple. It's a one-stop solution. We have to be able to scale not just across different property types, but also scale across geographies and countries and everywhere else. So we decided to be very flexible and dynamic. Portfolio, we had to be able to take all this information and gross it up to a level that we could see what's happening across all the marketplace, and then break it down by different areas. Compatibility means that people will be giving us their data in various ways. We need to be able to give it to them. We need to be able to take it from them and then be able to supply it in our own way. So we can't just say you get to do it in our way. We need to be able to look at everything else. A lot of times within real estate, the bigger problem is that, and this is a thing to stop for a second. Most people are decent and most people are good. But in the world of real estate and finance and everything else, there's always a few that want to be as evil and messed up as possible. And they will do whatever they can to screw you over, because that means they actually get more for it. So it's one thing to say, like, yeah, I can make a software that would work for 80% of the time, and then the 20% of the time I wouldn't know, so I'd be screwed 20% of the time, or even 97% of the time. So we had to make it so that you can't game it. And we're letting you know right now, if you bother trying to game this later on, you're going to be exposed. Mm-hmm. Expandable, so we can add on more features. user friendly so that it's an easy UI, and then transparency and meritocracy means that we can actually let teams work together and let the best people actually get to shine for it. And that's something that also does not exist oftentimes within real estate. That's much more backbiting and fighting, infighting. This is a way to make sure
Mhm.
that the people who are actually doing the right work get recognized.
Beautiful. Now we're coming to it's all the fun stuff, but now we're coming into the fun stuff. KOPA Hub, the ultimate solution for real estate underwriting and due diligence. So KOPA Market had to come first. This is how we got here and we're able to uncover all the needs. But now we're into the core white paper, out of the setup and the inspiration and the story part and into the this is a new platform. It's technology, right? There are mechanisms in there and always trying to, as you know, we go back all the way back with our car metaphor. We have so many different metaphors, our Iron Man, so many, and they're all like very like tangible technology, right? They're all how do we, this lever that we pull or this sprocket, this gear. This is not that. This is like actually very much not that, which is why those metaphors help us so much. But even though it's not a product you can hold, let's dive in a little bit to the product that is Copa Hub.
You know what's funny is that as a real estate person, it took me a long time to understand about products that you can't hold as being products. Even though about making Copa Market in the first place was like, yeah, it's a marketplace, and here's what it does, and here's how you get people out of poverty with it. But I would think about it like here's a lot of individual things that are kind of happening to make it happen, and uh, and then do Copa Hub, it was sort of the same thing. And then you actually broke down to me the idea of like benefits versus features, and I was like, huh? Well, yeah, of course I could do these things because I'm thinking as a real estate person, a compilation of bricks and sticks make up the house you're in. So I'm a very simple dude, right? and so and so when it comes to Coba Hub, it's funny. It's like you're holding like ether in your hand. It's like it can do all these different things. It's a MacGuffin in a movie. It can do whatever you need it to be able to do to be able to underwrite real estate, and then also be able to do due diligence on real estate. So what Copa Hub is right now is a set of tools that will help you underwrite and do due diligence much faster. And we have dozens or over a dozen features. Great. In the future, as we get bigger and bigger, Copa Hub will also represent that, and that's all within the one product. But we'll be able to keep on growing out that skill set. And same thing on the other side with as we add more other products in, and as these features become more interconnected, you'll be able to do a lot of different things, all within real estate, to make your life entirely easy. So, in its base, Copa Hub is the solution to all those things we just said above. What Copa Market need to be able to do to be able to scale and go around the world. All these
Right.
items, Copa Hub is the answer to all those things, and it's a way of doing so that was much more efficient, much more easy. Um, at its very base, where Copa Hub is a few things. It's the ability to take information from a document that's not from you and bring it in and standardize it. That's step one. Step two is it needs to be able to show it in a certain way so that you can understand what to do with the data. Because if you have it in some place but you can't access it, it doesn't help very much. And then from that data piece, you need to be able to act on it. And you need to be able to say, are these things good or not good? And then from there, you need to be able to manipulate that data to then make a final outcome. So for our ICM, for our OM options, or for our LOIs, you can do all that stuff because we have the data that is necessary. As if you think of the real estate itself as a entity, the sponsors as an entity, the investors as an entity, the third party vendors as an entities. They're all connected to each other in different ways. Some of them stay forever, some of them don't. But even within each of those things, we can add those. We can add to those and expand those out and find different ways of connections between them. So Copa Hub is essentially using the best of AI to extract, the best of software engineering to collate, the best machine learning to then take that information and put it in a way that's much easier to understand, the best design to then show how to service that to the average person so that you can actually do something with it, and the best of all the above to then make the change so that you can say, what is it that I'm actually trying to get to? What am I trying to say that we can do? And spend time getting to that and spend less time setting it up to see did I get it in the right information in the right way.
Features and benefits.
Yes.
That's the first time I've heard it phrased that way, but it, again, it made perfect sense, and it is right. collection of features that will allow us to do this. And I think that's a really powerful and strong way to communicate. I might need to clip this and use it later, but a really strong way to communicate what it is, right? Bringing the information in, need to be able to ingest it all, crunch it, manipulate it,
Hmm.
identify what to do next, and then do that next thing. It's like it's just the most simple four steps possible. Then it gets really complicated when you want to execute those four steps.
Yep.
But of course, technology, and as we mentioned, I think on our podcast we did, on the Why We Made KOPA Hub podcast, right? We talked about um, the fact that the technology, some of the technology that we needed to do some of these things is being invented still, or like
Oh,
was invented along the way. It's like, oh, we can do this. Like, oh, we can do this better. And so it truly is on the bleeding edge of tech as it exists right now in January 2025.
I'd even add what's fun. Yes, and when thinking about the idea of this ethereal thing in your hand that can grow, change, and whatnot, the idea for from the very beginning, when I first started Copa Market, there was always going to be some type of way for us to scale efficiently. That we could not just
Mhm.
scale our business without having, without underwriting for being more efficient or underwriting what to say with by having the best quality. And so knowing I knew about ChatGPT before it existed. I mean, before it was like a big name. I knew not ChatGPT. I'm sorry, AI, not just ChatGPT. But what really mattered was like, well, can we do a little bit of this? So let's say Copa Hub only had the ability for us to ingest the information, or it only had one piece. Any one of those pieces by themselves would have made us much faster. But now that things are getting better and better, and we can recognize how much more, not just are the models, the OCRs, whatever, getting better, we're also knowing how to query it better, and we're getting better.
Mhm.
So we're an evolving thing as well. Something else that actually hit me that I think that you just made me think of in hindsight, looking back at what currently exists in the real estate technology space, the way when I said before, like as a sticks and bricks person, that I was thinking about, like, okay, what are these different things needed to make this outcome happen? If I was a person that didn't understand real estate soup to nuts and hadn't worked at many different places I could, and I wasn't trying to build it for a particular outcome, but I was trying to build like, oh, I can make this thing better or this thing better, then that would explain a lot of why the current solutions out there aren't comprehensive. Because it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I do, if I'm a person that has to do spreadsheets all day, then I might find a way to make spreadsheets better. But that's going to be it. Like, well, I don't think about everything else. And because I've had this whole thing about getting people to poverty in Brazil since 2011, um, I was like, no, who cares about the individual pieces if they don't add up to something bigger? So it's a bit of a blessing in disguise, I guess. The hard times earlier on about kind of seeing how people are like, yeah, I can just do this one thing and I can just do it really well. Bang my head against the wall. And I was like, I don't feel like banging my head against the wall. I'll do it, but is that really the best use of time to bang it against the wall? How do we figure out some ways around it? And now, only because there's a really good team around me who knows what they're talking about, can we build this stuff and be like, oh yeah, now that I know it, yeah, let's do all of it.
It's so funny. It's so much work to get us back to like, and then you can decide what to do with your time, which
Yeah.
to your credit, you're always like, and then you can go hang out with your family, or you can go on vacation, or you can do turn the computer off. And I'm like, or you could do more deals.
Mm-hmm.
The choice is yours. Whatever you want to do with your time, knock yourself out.
If you decide to stay at work until 6 p.m. some nights and 8 p.m. other nights, you can get 5, 10 times the work done, then I would say you're probably better off getting some rest and coming back with fresh eyes in the morning. You can still work till 1 a.m., but if but now also because of the transparency part of and the fact that we know what's changed, it's like if you're tired, eventually you run out of steam. So you might
I
make
wanted
mistakes, and there's no need to make mistakes because they're actually going to take you more time. So you're actually better off in many cases having a work-life balance or some kind of balance and getting more stuff done.
what was it like before we had Excel? I don't actually want to know. Don't want
I,
to know.
there's a thing from U Chicago. It became famous. I forget the name of the database, but and I forget when they did it. It was in the 70s, I think. But they had undergrads. They paid for undergrads to go through every Wall Street Journal and input every single ticker and the cost of like the day, like the in a day trades in the day trades into a database, and that thing is extremely valuable for U Chicago now because of course they've been keeping it since then, but like that they and I forget how it was like a summer and a bunch of undergrads working like just around the clock, just like not around the clock. Back then they had balance, but
Whenever you've got time, right?
yeah. But oh no, they were full time jobs. Like they were like that was the internship for the summer was to input data from like
Also,
to
and I'm thinking of the like I've had so not actually that's just my whole career. But when you have like more work than can possibly be finished, so you're like, well, whenever I'm working, I know what to do. Like I
yeah.
just whenever I can be there, I'm plugging away at this thing.
And it worked. I mean, they because of that, they were able. A lot of Booth's, U Chicago's and Booth's economists have gotten a lot of Nobel prizes, but also they have access to more data than anybody else because it's all there. After that one bit of that actually taught me something. That one bit of very fervent, large number of people come together to put this information together. But like, there are only so many days of the stock market. There are only so like, and there are only so many companies that existed at any given point in time. So it was a
Mm-hmm.
lot. But once you figured it out, it's
But
like, oh,
do
there's not infinite.
that's so well said for what we're doing. It's like man, even when people are like, "So you guys are trying to boil the ocean?" I do know what that phrase means, but technically, like, and maybe the ocean's a little bit bigger than this mountain of data, but it is like it's very difficult, and we'd have to go very fast, very efficiently for a very long time. But it is possible. It's not possible.
I'd argue that real estate is the best thing to do it with because you are bounded by physics.
Hmm? That makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah. So if you
as
live
opposed to our ethereal products from before.
exactly, or like any kind of technology right now that technically had like that's why growth stocks can keep on going up. I mean, there's other reasons too, but growth stocks keep going up because they could always be Apple can find but a car or Elon can. Well, I'm not going to talk about Elon. Um, but like you can keep on building more things that allow you to make more money and do it so profitably. Therefore, there is no theoretical cap on what they can be. Real
Hmm.
estate is you can only build the land is finite. You can only build so many things in that land by right. Period. That's it. So for us, it's like yes, in the number of permutations in that space can be seem astronomical, but in reality, in my mind, the way I've always seen it is like, oh yeah, we're making sure that we know what's there, like in every aspect. We're just getting
Hmm.
granular as opposed to trying to go too high, do pie in the sky stuff.
All right, that's big math. That's not me math. But when we say it's astronomical, it's like, well, it's astronomical until you start to look at the math behind the Astros. You
Yeah,
start looking into space and like, actually, those numbers are way bigger. This is a lot, but it's feasible, or at least it's understandable, or you can start to wrap your head around it, right? But yeah, it is. It's the most based and connected to real life we could be in, which is what makes it the very best use case. One of the many reasons it makes it a very, very good use case. We talk about this all the time, right? It's got a very different feel. And like to our earlier point, also the idea that you can go and look and see it is really important. But I digress. That's for other purposes. Into the benefits. You
can I
want to
just say
skim over?
can I just say
Of
one other
course.
thing? This is a
Yeah.
random thing, but it actually hit me that I learned about this the other day. Do you know that right now, if we were to be like if an asteroid was coming to hit us, that we could divert it?
I believe it.
It was done. We diverted an asteroid like last year or 2 years ago.
Did we
So
do it like what's that movie? What's the Bruce Willis movie?
not Armageddon. No, no, that
Armageddon. I was like Andromeda? What's Andromeda? That's a different show.
that starship that battleship. No, Andromeda is a different. That was a show that was on.
That was the not Star Trek show, I think, in like
Yeah,
1997.
yeah. I think that's around that. Um, But no, we actually hit an asteroid and was able to an asteroid that would be enough to destroy the Earth. It's called DART, DART, and I forget
Well,
what it
shit.
stands for. But it's a real thing. But I think of that like that one. It's way outside of where we are. So to be able to calculate where the thing is, and it was one asteroid circling another asteroid, so you could send a something up knowing when the Earth is going to be close enough to it, and then hit the trajectory, know like when it's coming in a certain way to be able to hit it and do a certain kind of experiment, and then launch a camera out to be able to see that happen, and then be able to see the tilt of how the comet was able to change. That's hard. We're looking at 60 bricks.
That's math you can do. Yeah, that's again. That's not like I said. This is not me math. Like that's math you can do, and then you have to go out and do it and see if it works in real life. You guys
And
have fun,
with I think it was a $30 million or something like that. $30 million thing was like, if this messes up, you should, if I blew $30 million, I'd be pretty upset. They're like, yeah, if we messed it up, then we didn't solve how to save the earth. But if we did, that's a pretty good investment. And I'm like, real talk, yeah, kind of is.
right? That's one of those like if you mess it up and it's like, oh, you just lost 30 mil. It's like,
I'll do it again for
yeah. It's like I mean, you got pretty close though.
So I want to say all that. And right now, the Europeans are doing another one because that was a more densely packed asteroid. There's another one that's a less densely packed asteroid that the Europeans are trying to do right now. But I just say that because when I start thinking, and I like quantum physics and quantum mechanics and all that stuff, um, thinking about those things is something where I'm just like, oh, that's what really, really, really smart people do.
Right.
String theory and well, getting into the quantum and figuring out the boson Higgs God particle and all that stuff.
Oh,
That's
there we
what
go.
really smart people do. We're taking real estate and making sure that it's easily to understand. Yeah.
That was my favorite. My favorite phrase from the fashion days was like, "You guys, sneakers and t-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
We sell sneakers and t-shirts. Like
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, not that serious.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's trying to make a collider somewhere, and if they mess up, we're all gonna die or end up in a different multiverse. So
Mm-hmm.
sneakers and t-shirts, we can handle this stress.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Sorry, that was my aside. I just couldn't. I
Oh
couldn't help.
no, no apologies. And also, if anyone is listening to this white paper talk through and they are this many minutes into it, I hope you enjoyed that.
Oh, I gotta get a podcast persona. Okay, yeah,
If they want to skip that, read the paperwork.
yeah.
Who got the paperwork? Read that. All brass tacks. I promise no anecdotes in the white paper itself.
No, 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 no.
Into our key benefits here.
Yeah, there's many. There's the extreme speed, which of course you can go faster. The accuracy, which you can be more right and go faster. I kind of think of it like if you could be in a stock car or one of those a drag racing car and go straight really, really fast. But if you need to turn, you're screwed. And that doesn't really help you all that much. So, but you could also be in a car that can turn really well, but if it's slow, you probably lose the race. So what happens if you can go fast and have handling? That's what we are. Uh, and if I were to take the car analogy all the way through, which I may not, maybe I shouldn't do, but whatever, I'll try it anyway. Universal compatibility is the ability to say I could drive on pavement or I could be off road. Your intuitive interface is like, hey, look, I know how to drive this car right from scratch. I don't need to be taught on it. I don't need to have a bunch of extra things. Your rich data means that I can see what's coming up in front of me before I ever get to it. Increased precision is that I know exactly what turn I need to make in every individual increment, and I don't have to worry about it being wrong because it's already done. System standardization. I'll come back to that one because I don't know if that comes to mind. Enterprise grade security just means that even if I make a bad turn and I mess up and I flip on the back, I'm not going to die in it because I'm able to, like, we know that it's safe and it's got a 10 out of 10 star from the transportation, NTSB. Scalability means that I can make that car limited numbers of that car. And transparency means that the windows are really clear so I can see what's coming up. And then back to standardization. Oh, that just means that there's no quality defects in making the car. So if you think of it like,
It's so funny that you skipped that one with the car metaphor. You skipped
yeah.
the assembly line.
Well, what's funny is I was thinking about it almost from like how you standardize the roads or standardize gravel, and I was like, you can't really standardize gravel. That's the whole idea about it being compatible. And because I freestyled that whole thing, I think I got 9 out of 10 before having to go back to the other one. So
Nope, that was very good, very solid. And as somebody who just read all of your benefits blogs, if anyone's interested, we have long form writings on all of these benefits. You were spot on.
well, just imagine driving that car. Oh wait, can I go back to one other thing real quick? Uh, we also have hmm, hmm. We also run on unlimited nuclear fusion energy, so that you don't worry about gas. You call it electric if you want to, but it's fusion because 1 cup of that can power a city. 1 cup of salt water can power a city. We got that in the tank. So imagine a nuclear submarine that's able to go 50 years without needing to come up and be repaired, or come up and be need to have more of a power source injected. Same thing with us. That this car can go as fast, be as nimble, go anywhere, do anything, be safer than anything else, and never run out of power. KOPA Hub.
I'm looking real hard because I'm like, is there another benefit to be added? I know we added scalability or smarter scaling last.
I mean, I
Hmm.
I think if we thought of it at scale, under scalability, because I was thinking about this too, and we have both of these things in our transparency blog. Transparency within a team is different than transparency between your team and others, and
Mhm.
it's different between transparency between you and the counterparty, right? And so there's all transparency, so I put it all in there. But the thought process of like, what does energy look like? Energy looks like what has it been like? What's the benefits of AI just generally that it never sleeps, right? So yes, you're faster if you gave a human and KOPA Hub the same task that things do. KOPA Hub would finish it in 10 minutes, and a human, or 5 minutes or whatever, and a human might take 3 days. If they're really fast, so it's faster. But also, if you gave it to a human at 4 a.m. and a KOPA Hub at 4 a.m., KOPA Hub would finish it in the 10 minutes and be done by 4:10. The human would wake up at 8, and then they start working on
This is really funny because I'm looking at, well, actually both transparency and scalability from the human lens, which they're both accurate and they're both right
it.
there, but thinking of them even differently, when you explain, talk of the metaphor of, right, of like nuclear energy, or like right, like a drop of energy can go so much further. I'm like, well, humans have finite energy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm like, if I've got my one person that can only just like, I have this incredible analyst, this incredible person, and I want them on a deal. Well, traditionally, right, it's like I need a full tank of gas to drive all the way to Vegas or whatever. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you can get to Vegas on a tenth of a tank of gas. So you could drive back and forth the whole, so I can still have you driving, but you can do so much. So it's like the energy there spreads so much further out, not scaling like scalability in the terms of we can handle larger volumes of data, but you can grow your business faster, right? Because your
Mm-hmm.
people can go further, right? Like we're still
Mm-hmm.
using cars, but the gas got so much better that
Mm-hmm.
our cars can do so much. It's cleaner and it lasts for so much longer.
And
And the
it's
same
dry.
thing actually for transparency. Well, opposite actually, transparency. I think about the transparency of data,
Mm-hmm.
of being like increased transparency, like we can see through it more. So interesting how they both work
In
and can
both ways.
cut two ways, whether it's a tech or a human. But the benefit stays true at its umbrella level. Like that's the
Mm-hmm.
point. It's all very purposeful.
And same thing also, I'd say, like, if, imagine using the same car metaphor, the ability to drive by itself, right? Like, this is what we do that. So, like, if you wake up at 4, if it gets it at 4 in the morning, you can be sure that it's going to get you to right to the doorsteps. It can't make you get out and walk up the stairs to your
Mm-hmm.
hotel, but it can get you to the lot and let you know, hey, look, it's here.
All the stuff that's programmable,
Yep.
automatable, it can do.
Yep.
When you get there and they gotta check you in, now I'm thinking Vegas specifically and concierge stuff, so let that go. But that's a person thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which actually is really, I mean, not an accident, but it does position us to discuss quickly the evolving capabilities, right? So you referenced earlier, we need more words, like built to scale
Mm-hmm.
over time. And it's like, well, scale, scale, scale. But this scalability here, built to grow and evolve rather, is how it's open. And again, having to integrate brand new technology and even integrate and reintegrate, we're very engineered toward integrating new technologies as they continue to evolve with an eye on the evolving real estate market. So do you have something you want to say maybe on Copa Hub's evolving capabilities?
Yeah. I would say that if we built it only to be as good as it is today, then we would be doing ourselves a disservice, especially seeing how fast technology has already been able to grow. Why would we limit ourselves to what we're only able to do today? And so we know that new things will be coming on, and there's no reason for why we shouldn't be able to have those things be able to be better help for the people who are using our products. It just makes common sense. And so when coming up with this initial concept, there's the idea in startups, oftentimes in development, software development, you'll hear about it, the term called a monolith, which is almost like a train on a track that you can go really, really fast in one direction. But if you decide you need to turn it all, the game's done. You have to go back and start from scratch and just do it again. And you can't connect train one to train two. You got to build train two separately differently.
You got to go back and you got to stop the momentum of the big train before you
Oh,
can even go backwards. There's a
yep,
lot going on. Yeah.
yep. And that train can get hacked, and it can also like so it's easy to hack the train too. So like then the train stops, whatever. So there's that, but that's for people that want to build fast. Then there's the idea of like microservices, which are essentially um, uh, there's a back end of many, many databases that are grouped to do certain things. And then that back end goes through a couple layers of security and aggregation so that the front end is able to interact with it. So if you think of when you're on Amazon, when you hit buy now or something, which you just click a button, but the number of things that are being triggered for that to happen, there's hundreds of things happening, not just from like you tell the CPL that you're going to be able to buy this thing, and this thing says, okay, do we have any in stock? And then does it have in stock? Okay, well, no, then you have to wait for it to be delivered from this other place, and where's that thing, whatever. It tells you all those things where it says like you'll be there in 2 days. You don't think about any of that other stuff because it's like, oh, that's a lot. You just see that one thing happening. For us, and Amazon could then go out to build AWS and other things on top of that because they had this system of data. They were able to say, look, I can use more things and I can apply more things to it. To us, it was much more like building a lake or call it a lake or an ocean if you want to. If we have all this back end stuff that allows us to be able to grow, and then we have a boat, if you want to call the front end the boat, where it's like here's what it looks like and the uses for it. The boat can go to anywhere it needs to go to because it's supported by so much data in the back end, and those are what
Mhm.
microservices are. So for us, we built it in a way that took longer to build for sure. It was much more complicated to build for sure. But now that we built it once, we don't have to build it again. It's done. And
Right. Future
that
proof is a dangerous thing to say, but future proof, future built, future ready.
future, it's I don't even think it's like it's there in every single way that we at every decision and every turn that there was a question what can we do, we could make this able to do more things with something else or not, and we could get that thing done faster. I always said no, let's make sure that we could be more able to do other things. We'll take more time because when we're there it needs to be right for for things we may not even know yet.
Hmm.
So it's there's a concept of being anti-fragile, um, and there's also a concept like in Taoism when you say you want to be like water,
Hmm.
that you can be focused as you want to be and create the Grand Canyon, but you could also provide all life. And so we want to be able to have that, and the more that we have that, we want to be able to use that water analogy from the lake perspective, the better it is, and the more we're able to, the more things that we're able to add to it. There's no lake that says I won't take more water, and there's no lake that says I won't take less. I mean, take less.
Fair enough. Be like the white paper metaphors show, but is really good. Maybe what should be more in white papers. Right, built for the future, and I think that's important. I mean, for as many reasons as we just announced or we just shared, but also thinking about if and when. I mean, like the task here is giant. Like, right, we're so ears deep in it that we're like, yeah, I mean, we know whatever. But the task is giant to be able to really shift an industry and kind of redefine how a fundamental process works.
Hmm?
When that happens, like we were just talking about LA County earlier, when that happens and you do accomplish a shift, it's normally a real long time before the next shift because it's really complicated. So it's really, really intelligent, wise, but also just prudent to plan for that, right? Like if we are again, even just to be responsible people, right? But if you are able to shift the industry, it's not just prepping the product to be flexible and future proof. It's how do we enable our user base, our growing and evolving user base, to be able to still get the best out of this tool and get what we're promising them right now in 5 years or 10 years when things have changed and who knows what other technology changes, right? But how do we maintain that? And not that I guess it's a consumer promise, but how do we maintain that promise and continue to show up as the company that we say we are and create the tools and platforms that we say we do?
I'd even add to that and say there's a it, it might be controversial in this thought, but like I think it would be arrogant for us to make it so that we couldn't change more. Like, do we think that we know everything that will happen in the future and therefore like this is it? No. There's a lot of arrogance in real estate amongst real estate professionals that they think that they know everything. And I've gone through enough to be like every time there's a forecast, you've never seen a forecast that says it's going to go negative, except for some crazy hacks that say it goes negative all the time, and then whenever it goes negative, and they say they were right the whole time, and then everybody else said they weren't. But you don't really have a thing of like people actually calling it one way or the other, um, and not just real estate, I guess anything in capital markets. And I think it's much easier and better to say like this is what we will do. This is our values. This is how we're going to be able to help and grow in the future, and then set ourselves up for success to be able to do that, even if it means that we don't go as fast to start because we're doing it the right way.
There's a saying. What's that saying about if you want to go
Fast.
far? Something
If you
like
want to
that.
go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Which people will say is an African proverb, but I actually can't find any evidence that's an African proverb.
I want to leave the credit over there.
I like it because it's a number one. Africa is a continent. So to say it's an African proverb, I'm like, yo, I mean, I kind of feel like it's a North American proverb. What the?
Oh, see, that's so funny. When people say, "Oh, that's now we're really digressing." When people say America, I'm like, "Oh, it's always so funny to me that people go abroad and say I'm from America," and I'm
Yeah,
like, "America?
yeah,
You're from the United States. You're from
yeah,
the USA. You're from
yeah.
the US. Just say the US part. America is real big. There's like multiple Americas. Whatever.
Like
So I stand
it's a South American proverb.
that. Now, see, I can hear that. I can hear that. Either way, quickly, now we're getting really far away from the
Yeah.
proverbs and the metaphors and the ethereal products into very real brass tacks, the KOPA Hub pricing model and how it actually works. And after we've talked about all these incredible features, how do you get your hands on it, and what does that look like for the many commercial real estate professionals that we're hoping to deliver this to? So tell me about pricing models and why they're set up this way.
So first off, at our base, we are an ownership company. We do real estate, but we're still very much an ownership company. We want to find ways to help as many people be able to own in the ways that they need to their benefit as possible. So instead of saying yes, we could just charge everybody a lot of money for all the different features that we have out there. It's possible to do that, but how does that benefit? Because we need to make it so that the cost of underwriting for those who want to do individual deals, who may want to do things in smaller areas, they actually might be okay having fewer features because those extra features are needed for larger teams. So why not make it cheaper for those who want to be able to use it at the base level? And then for those that need to have additional features, we provide that. So our standard features, which we've been going over in great detail, um, already will take your time down 5x to 7x what it would have been otherwise. So we're providing that value off the bat for every individual. But if you're an individual, you don't need to write necessarily an investment committee memo or to write an operating offering memorandum. You're just buying a deal for yourself and with some friends. You should be able to do that and do that in a cost effective way. If you're using much more complex things that require lots more computing power, then we have other things for you that allow you to do that. So you'll see those in our additional features, and we have quite a few now. We're going to have even more over time. So you can check those out on our site at any given time, and they will continue to grow. And then also understanding that we don't want to just be the folks that nickel and dime you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the idea of like if you're an individual doing lots of deals by yourself, then yes, you could have a monthly or a yearly. Our monthly is going to be around 12 deals a month that you can do, and then our yearly is going to be like 150 deals a month, much more than anybody. I mean, a year. No one else is going to be doing. If you do 150 deals a year, then you've already made your money from Copa
You're doing
before
all
the
right.
time's over. You're
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then for the additional features, again, you can use those on a per deal basis if you're just doing one or two, like the average person would probably be doing in a year. And those also have yearly and monthly. But if you're a professional and you use things that are much more common within a buy sides like private equity, or if you're on a sell side like a broker or a banker, you'll need to have access to tools, and you don't necessarily need to or want to pay for all those tools individually on an a la carte basis. So we created versions of that where you can buy it for cheaper. So we put together things that you typically would need if you're a professional, so that you could buy that and get a 25% discount over what otherwise you'd be able to have. And then, and then we also have a team model that allows for larger corporations and enterprises to come together, and we work with them to essentially make custom solutions that allow them to be able to do a better job as well. So they're all different. They have different levels, and there'll be more levels that come in over time. But essentially, we're still at the very base. We're still trying to provide the most ownership for people and get out of the way as much as possible, and not just overcharge for folks that don't need all the extra compute, and charge correctly for those that do.
Really across the board. So it enables smaller shops to punch bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bigger shops to punch faster, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and more efficiently. And then also for those people, and that's what we talk about so much, and maybe we'll get into it, this commitment to impact and innovation. But I think I know it's one of our core beliefs and one of our values, right? That we're excited to see what people can do with these tools in their hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we can enable people with better tools, that they will bring even further innovation and things that, while we certainly spend time assigning metaphors and thinking about how it can work and what they could do. I think the excitement and the smile that's on your face and mine as well comes from the fact that we don't know what they're going to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. We want to give you the tools to see. So smaller shops are bigger shops are faster, but also the nature of shops might change itself, right?
Yep.
The people that work at the shops I talk when I'm explaining this to the guys at the barbershop, people that are very much not in this world. I'm like, yeah, but there might be some incredible people that work at big shops that can only look at the deals that are given to them to work on, but they might be from somewhere small or
Mm-hmm.
from somewhere that's not on that docket or they vacationed or they visited or they have a tie or an interest rather to a different place, a different property type, a different industry, whatever that might be, whatever your story, motivation, fire flame, wherever that comes from, right? And how you might use this tool to reshape that. And maybe you leave a shop. Maybe you don't want to be at a shop anymore. And you're like, well, I know how to do enough. I can do
Mm-hmm.
this myself and make this type of impact that they're not concerned about at all. So I know there's a lot of excitement about it's not just to make the bigger shops faster or now you can save money. You can fire your analysts or whatever. In my mind, whenever I think of we can get rid of analysts or whatever, I'm like, well, even if it changes and you do, now those analysts, they still have their skill set. Now they can go out, and if it becomes a new fold of the industry, right? And it's like, oh, it's not that they're gone; they're just not needed there anymore. So really exciting to look at it, and I think the pricing model is set up to reflect that. But it's also another thing that I imagine will evolve over time. We'll keep our eyes on it and
100%.
continue building the right solutions.
The only other thing I forgot to mention, which is also very important, is as we came up with these pricing solutions and numbers, no version of this is more than 15% of the cost that you would otherwise be spending on it. So if you say if you saved, say you save $100,000, we wouldn't charge you anything more than 15. So that's not about making sure that we can make it that much easier or fast for you than try to take it off ourselves. Like, you've made this smart choice to have this great technology to do better things with it. Yeah, we're gonna make sure that you actually get that value for yourself and that becomes profitable.
I sure did hold your guys' feet to the fire on what I call KOPA math.
Yeah.
I think you've heard me say that before. The KOPA math is like, well, we had to actually do the math to figure out how much what are the cost savings, what are the time savings, what does it take to underwrite a deal as if that's, as if there's one way to skin that cat. Many, 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 many ways, but I appreciate you guys doing that work. And I look at it, I still have the tab open of the spreadsheet, the multiple spreadsheets. I'm like, the content I make from this is going to be so much easier to make than it is for you guys to have done this math. So I appreciate you so much. But it's absolutely fundamental and a cornerstone of our value proposition is that we have. I mean, of course we had to do it, but we had to do it.
Yep, 100%.
Amazing. We talked a little bit about it, so we're already into this section. But KOPA Hub's brought a commitment to impact and innovation.
We're an ownership company, and so that's not leaving any product that we put out, any platform that we put out. And so we're totally aware that in life, without getting too metaphorical, I said that as a little but in life, for us, we believe that you stay true to your roots and you stay true to why you did something. There are things that have been fundamental that we can, as humans, we breathe air, and that's fundamental to our existence. So we couldn't imagine life living underwater because we would die, right? When it comes to real estate, fundamental to the thing has been that you need to take 200, 300 hours to underwrite a deal if you're working on a team. Fundamental to that also means that you're going to have issues with people trying to screw you over, and that you can make a wrong decision and be made to look a fool, and that because of those things, yes, an individual might do a deal by themselves, and they may not do it with the most knowledge in mind. They might just kind of go into it and see what happens. But they do so on the smaller deals, and those are much less traded and much more difficult to get into. And then there's the larger deals, which are the ones that typically all the same private equity shops kind of compete over, the 15% that are above $20 million. But and and I should also say there's like this thing that's been this case where private equity companies have been buying up single family homes, and that's what that allows them to do the same kind of underwriting, but it's easy enough for them to do, so they can do so at scale, so they can make money from that. If you took that away, if you took away the need to have the time to essentially it's calculating time, it's time to set up the deals correctly and to compute what your returns would be on them. If you took that away, and now you can do it for the love of the game, not just doing it because you had to go you're not the athlete that's going to get paid the most money to be on a team. You're the one that gets to play to go win a championship, however you define what champion means. There are ways out there that will be created using this new paradigm that we cannot foresee. Whether they're in certain communities, whether they're how certain communities are repurposed and rebuilt so they're maybe more community focused, or they have more community ownership, or they have more affordability, or they have more transportation. These things that once took forever to do, and to be able to run a permutation on that could have taken forever, now can take minutes. And if that's the case, especially for the ones that are really, really impactful and really help a lot of people, or focus on doing so, we want to enable that. We're not just doing this to make the money. We're doing this because we want to see this impact and this ownership. So if you are watching this and you're this far down and you care about making something in your world better, and you want to give more ownership to more people, and you want to be able to help others, and you have ideas around it, talk to us. And don't just come with, like, there's this thing about coming with ideas and not having to be half baked and whatever else. Do some thoughtfulness and thinking, like, how could you having this technology be able to help you? And we can do competitions where at some number of times per year, we haven't figured out how very often yet, we'll be able to just provide, like, whoever wins will get a free year subscription or get a free deal subscription to our highest and best whatever we have out there in the market, so that we can make something happen. That's something that I commit to, full stop. And whether you're a nonprofit, you're a for-profit, you're whatever, show me the impact, show me the ownership, show me how many people are better off because what you did existed. And then we start talking about how to make that thing happen. And if we get more people thinking that way and thinking about how they don't have to worry about those costs, then we can help make the world a better place.
Absolutely.
So for the enterprise side, I mean, enterprises are going to need, we've covered the basis for, I can only imagine, 95% of what's possible, but there's going to be those that want to be able to do more in some kind of way, and it's worth us talking to them. Bless you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't bless a cough. So
I'll take it. You can't take it back now. No takesies, backsies.
It's like, how do you untake back? So what does that mean is that if you want to have certain things built in a certain way, something a little bit different, talk to us. There's things that we may not have considered yet, but definitely still open for it. So we
and just to add, well, like, we're also, I mean, we're attacking that, right? Like, that is something that we're out working on and putting out there. But even as you're saying it, I'm like, I mean, it's so easy for us to contact students, so we are reaching out to the students, say, what are your ideas? If you're not a student, I still want your ideas. If you're a professional, you probably know a little bit more. Students are the only creative ones. In fact, they're students for a reason.
Yep.
So it's easy for us to reach out and work with them because they're organized and they're all hungry and they all are like, I have an idea, even though they're probably, But to your point, it's something that we want to attack, I think, in the future as well. So the message, putting the message out now,
Yep.
but it's also something like everything else, like the rest of our values that we will be attacking. And I use that word a lot, but I mean it, getting after it and trying to make it happen because as we've said now for the third time, we know there's further innovation. When you create tools like this, people change things.
Yep.
And we're focused on creating this tool. Whatever you're focused on that you need this to do,
Yep.
we need you to do that.
Yep. Exactly. And the last thing, which I think is huge, is security. And so every single type of real estate company is going to be and should be hyper focused on their pipeline, especially if they have, everyone says they have their own proprietary pipeline sourcing. And for whatever that thing is, we don't want to take that from you. So there's a common thing amongst big tech that's known, like when people say like, hey, look, I'm going to buy your data, or they'll sell your data to whomever. That's a problem. If you're talking about something where it's like this is your lifeblood, you can't get a good deal if someone else always knows what your best deals are and they're able to front run you. And just because they have more
Mm-hmm.
money today doesn't mean they should be able to front run you forever. Otherwise, the world become even more unequal. So we say that's not happening. We're not letting that happen. We will never sell your data. Full stop. There's no reason to. We do fine economically, um, and more importantly, uh, because we have a marketplace on the other side, it makes no sense for us to sell your information to Goldman Sachs or any large private equity company that's going to try to front run you. We are economically aligned to do fair capital and to allow people to be able to buy in and increase ownership. And so we could make a pledge right now, and we'll make a pledge later on in the future in a more public forum. But we will not sell you. We will never sell your data. Full stop. No questions. No anything else. No outside party will have access to your data. Your data is yours. If you sign up with us, everything in your instance belongs to you, and
It's not our right. That's not our business model. That's not our company values. That's not who we are as people. We also just don't think it's cool. Like at
yep.
every level, like at every level, fundamentally disagree with that concept, which is really important because we know that's not a shared positioning.
We say that, and the other thing too is we also don't plan to advertise to you. So it's not like it's like okay, we're going to sell your data so that somebody else can come in, they can front run you and do like what Robinhood does with the payment for order
Oh
flow,
goodness.
right? Or we could do what TikTok does now that it's the 20th of January, so now they just got back online. But like we could take data from or Facebook or Meta, whatever. Let me take all your data and sell it to data brokers who will then follow. That's not us. Hard stop. There's no reason to spend all this time trying to get people out of poverty so we can sell it for trinkets. That's not the
You
game.
got to be Santa Claus to be the boogeyman, apparently.
Hard pass. So,
Oh, that's a funny.
um,
Now I'm thinking of Santa Claus metaphors. I'll tell you about later.
oh boy. Um, well, the other thing too is I think the thing is like when someone says if you get the product for free, then you're the product, and that's why
Hmm.
we charge for this because it's like this does take time and effort to be able to do, and you're not going to the product in all of your terms and conditions you will see, and there will be any kind of legal sidestepping. We're not selling to third parties. Full stop. So look, do it. I implore you to look through the terms and conditions, any of the things you have to sign to be on KOPA Hub. You're not going to see it.
Never thought about this, but maybe a T's and C's video. I want to make a terms and conditions TikTok video that people will actually consume. Twitter
Oh,
thread. Think about this later on. That would be the marketing accomplishment of the decade. Getting
yeah,
people to consume terms and conditions.
yeah. Because I'm like, yo, check what we do and then check what anybody else does. Bet.
I'm like, no. Click. Take my information.
Yeah, yeah. But don't forget that information is your lifeblood. So you're like, oh, look, now I'm poor.
But
I got
I'm
to know what
trying
to
to
do.
play Xbox right now. Just take the information so I can play whatever game is hot. NBA,
Oh boy,
Call of Duties.
the number of people who are. the number of people who do that. And it's like, okay, fine, you want to get away from your life, but when you're doing real estate stuff, there's a lot of money to lose. There's a lot
And
of
a lot of really important information in there.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and the other thing
All
too, I
right.
can also say from a security standpoint is, so not only so we're not going to save your data, but we've also made it the whole metaphor of the train track versus the lake. The train track, the train is very easy to hack because all the code's in one place. The train has everything. In the data lake, you can see the water. Or no, you could be on the boat and see on the boat, and you can see the surface of the water, but you can't see underneath the water. We have a couple layers. It's actually becomes more complicated, but let's just say there's a few layers to make it difficult to be able to get in. So like your data is not in the place that could be hacked. Our security level is built on the same level of industry. I can't call them juggernauts, but industry standards like Intralinks. We built all of our stuff on the same level of security, so it's not something you could just that someone could just easily hack and walk in. And
And like the rest of our tech, we're positioned to grow with
that part.
as security grows. We
Oh
will
yeah,
continue to grow our security technology across the board, full stop. We keep the innovation push, 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 but
yep,
we're ready to stay there because as soon as you build a bank, they build better bank robbers, and we're going to keep
yep.
building a better bank.
And we're already talking to some a couple of leading edge technology things. I won't talk about it yet because we'll be integrating with them soon.
I don't even say edge
Uh,
technology to me. I don't want edge computing. I want none of it.
no, no, leading edge, bleeding edge, not
Leading edge.
yeah, because there's things we're already getting
I
prepared
also
for.
want none of it.
Well, we're getting prepared for quantum. We're getting prepared for all like no, no, seriously, we're
No,
actually
that's why I'm laughing.
it's like yeah,
Well, you guys work on that, and then give me the cool words like quantum, and I'm gonna make it sound awesome. Like Salesforce
quantum.
has Agent Force now. That sounds cool. Agent Force sounds like some Marvel shit. I love it.
It does sound like some Marvel shit, doesn't it?
See, they're having fun. Marketing guys are having fun. Somebody had to create whatever Agent Force actually is, and that sounds awful.
You know, actually, that reminds me. This is not an. It's part of our future thing evolving thing. But like right now, what's become popular amongst a certain sector of the internet is this idea called agentic AI agents that are able to do things for you.
Mhm.
And there's like this thought process that AI agents will do everything for you at all times or whatever. It's like an AI agent can only be as good as the data that it has access to, and will often spit up the wrong thing, and then you'll ask for pasta, and it'll give you a tortellini, but it'll be 3 weeks old because you didn't say it had to be fresh, kind of thing. And so the idea of that happening, it's going to take some time, but you need to have a data set no matter what. And so even as agents become more knowledgeable and more capable, we're making our stuff already capable so that it can work with any agent that you want it to. We'll have our own, of course, but then you can always work with your own as well. And you want to be able to do something and run scenarios for you, do that as well.
Staying on the edge.
Yep.
I love it. Bring us on home.
Okay. The conclusion is KOPA Hub's dope.
In conclusion, KOPA Hub is fantastic. What to say there? Don't let inefficiencies hold you back. So yeah, there's a lot in here, a lot going on. But again, if you made it this far, you certainly understand. And I hope you read the white paper itself and are looking at the rest of this content. Seems like the wrong word. The rest of this information we're putting out there. We're trying to bring it into further clarity. It's like at the eye doctor where they're like one or two,
Uh huh.
one or two. We're getting more clarity, and each time you consume more of this, more clarity, and then you're going to have your hands on it pretty soon,
Oh
or
yeah.
maybe already, depending on when you're watching this. So,
Yeah.
really
Oh.
appreciate the time. I know I asked you first to write the white paper, which is a task in and of itself, and then I made you talk about it on two different occasions, but it's really important and really relevant. And for the third time, I'll say it for anybody that is watching it this long, incredibly, just immense value to actually hear the thought behind it and tap into the values that are driving the innovation.
I'm just thankful for anyone that watched this long and didn't get sick of hearing your voice is nice, but I can't listen to my voice this long, so I'm never going to watch this ever.
We'll stay on opposite sides of this thing and we'll keep on making stuff. Thank you all so much. KOPAHub.io for more information. You know where to find us.